I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods Volcano Block. So this is turning into a 3-part series because, well, Mekanism is kind of the most complicated mod in this entire pack. And, well, takes a lot of time in order to set up. And the sooner you can get these processes set up, the better, and the easier late game is, considering we're going to need 13 antimatter in order to proceed. So what are we doing today? Well, today we should be able to get our fission reactor up and running and start producing the byproduct and start processing those byproducts. It's going to be very important that we do this because the sooner we do this, the sooner we can make an SPS and start converting all of that waste into antimatter. Now, before we do this, we do have to make a few things, and that is going to be these HDPE sheets. And these were where we left off last episode. Now, I'm going to try and make this process as streamlined as possible. Now, what we do need for this to work is we are going to need ourselves some substrate that we need to produce. And to produce the substrate, we need ourselves biofuel. Now, biofuel comes from like plant matter, so anything you can harvest can do this. But we do get a ton of cactus. So what I'm going to do is use cactus inside of a pattern provider, goes inside the crusher, turns into biomass, gets put back into the system upon request. So to request this, we simply have biofuel inside of an export bus with a crafting card, and that should keep this in stock. So all we have to do on the item center is say input and allow an input in here, and that should send so long as we have enough channels. Do we have enough channels? Yes. So this should send biomass once it's crafted, which is working right now, as you can see. And there we go. So now it has it in stock. Of course, upgrading this would only make it better, in which we're going to get done. But first, let's get it up and running. So other things that it's going to need besides power is going to be water, and it's also going to need hydrogen. So this is where our hydrogen channel is going to come into play, and also our water channel. And so what I'm going to do is put the water on the bottom. And so I'm going to place this down here. We'll have water connected to our water channel, and then our hydrogen down here. So let's go ahead and see water and make sure this is automatically sending up. And so we'll say output on, and that now has water. And then the hydrogen, of course, we do have a hydrogen channel. So we'll set that. And then we'll say under gases, make sure to output to the right. And there we go. Perfect. Now, this is going to produce two different things. An item, which is a substrate, and it's also going to produce ethylene. Now, we need to do something with all of these. And so what we can do is technically use a quantum entangleporter for every part of this. So the quantum entangleporter is going to, for one, accept the items, and then over here going to accept the ethylene. Now this machine, by the way, is producing ethylene gas, and this can actually be burned inside of the gas burning generator, and is honestly how you would generate ethylene for the gas burning generator, which does produce quite a bit of power if that's something you wanted to do early on. Of course, I skipped this pack because I do feel it is incredibly powerful. But anyways, this ethylene then needs to be converted into liquid ethylene. So to do that, I am going to put a condensator, rotary condensator right here. And then this is just going to pull from this. This is going to automatically export the gas to the side on the output. And then that is going to condense that into the liquid form of ethylene. So perfect. We have liquid ethylene channel set. And then this is just going to straight up send the liquids over to the output, and it should automatically send, and there it is. And then the final step, we need to, well, take the item that is going to be sent up here, which is going to be substrate, like so. And we need to make sure this is outputting the item to the top, auto eject. That is now stored in this buffer. And then of course we can use that on another pressurized reaction chamber. And so here we go. The last sort of step, right? We need a quantum entangleporter that is sending the items back into here. So, and then this also needs water as well. So might as well grab another water channel, and we can just put the water on the bottom. So, same. We could have ran a pipe, but I'm just making this to make it kind of nice and clean. And we'll make sure to select the water. Make sure the fluid is exporting to the top. There we go. Water's in. This also is going to be a liquid. And we make sure under the liquid section that we are automatically inputting over here and outputting over here. And then that should send the liquid ethylene. Technically, it should send it over here, I think. So long as we have the fluid input set. Okay. And then last but not least, we need to get the items from the top. So we'll make sure the input set there and the output is going to be here. And then we'll just simply say items automatically output to the bottom. And that should send the items there. Now, of course, even I mess up sometimes. And this is where the dropper comes into play. This actually doesn't need water. What this actually needs is oxygen. So to be able to make this, I just overlooked. It needs the liquid ethylene and then it needs the oxygen. So it should now have liquid ethylene, but we do need to convert this. And I think there is a way to reset the frequency on this. If I go ahead and set this instead to oxygen, it should now have overridden that. And then we can go under the gases section, make sure fluids is changed, go under gases and make sure that is set to auto output oxygen into the top. Okay, that should now work. And now we have oxygen and liquid ethylene, and then we have our substrate. So yes, that was a little bit of a whoopsie doopsie. Now the only other part to get this to work is an importer on the back. And this is going to pull that substrate out. And I do want to store this inside of my storage drawers because we can send it into an enrichment chamber to actually get more. And we only need it on demand, right? So this will give us at least some that's going to be crafted up. So last but not least, let's go ahead and take this and hopefully these 3 machines are supported. Yep, we have enough room. We still have room for 3 more. And that should get these machines up and running. So it's producing the substrate. It is doing the concentrating. And over here is now producing this. It's saying not enough power, but that's probably due to this. I probably need to put more energy upgrades in here. But there it goes. It's producing the HDPE pellets. And then all we need to do now is make sure that the items are outputting the back and make sure they're auto outputting so they go into the importer. And there we go. We now have HDPE pellets and sheets. So now, just in case you missed it, the last episode, we ended up setting up the fission reactor, and I explained how you can set this up with no need for any of the turbines. And I also explained how you can make it completely resistant to explosions by simply setting up your fission reactor logic adapters. So this is not too difficult as it only has 4 of them. And I want to preface that this is important because you can easily blow up your base and irradiate the whole thing. It's not like it goes boom. It's like it goes boom and then makes it so it is completely inhabitable. Like you will not be able to stand around without receiving radiation damage, which is a constant ticking damage, which is insanely annoying. And it really doesn't get any better unless you craft yourself a Mekanism suit with some radiation upgrades. Outside of that, you're just going to be dealing with radiation, which is no fun. Nobody wants to deal with that. So just avoid it by simply making these logic adapters. This is super important. And I've talked to so many people who didn't even know they existed. So please do this. All you have to do is just use a signal that's inverted. Use some of the create links, which just basically allow you to send redstone wirelessly. And these output a signal. It'll receive a signal. And right now, as you can see, the reactor is shut off because currently it doesn't have any fuel. So yes, it can shut off for fuel. It can shut off for when it receives critical damage, which is important because if this starts to receive a bunch of damage, it will just blow up. And it receives damage when it runs out of things like water, or if it runs out of other materials, or it can start to receive damage if there's not enough space for it, like if you're not outputting your steam fast enough, right? So all of these things can be avoided if you just simply use this a redstone torch connected to a adapter that's set to activation, and then of course set that up. So with all this going, there is something that we do need to start working on, and that's sending it fizzle fuel, of course. But before I even start sending it fizzle fuel, I do want to get up the logistics of how I'm going to manage the waste. So this is going to be important. Now, waste is a gas in this, so we do need a tube, and we can use ultimate pressurized tubes. Let's go ahead and make quite a few of them because this is going to be routed quite a ways throughout our base, and is going to be very important because we need to make two different types of waste, or convert our waste into two different types of things. And that's going to be using the solar neutron activator, which is the whole reason why we set up the sheets in the first place. And we need to convert this nuclear waste that's going to be generated from our fission reaction into polonium, which is one of the things. And then we also need to take that polonium and convert it into polonium pellets. This is going to also require fluorite, so it's another thing that's going to be utilizing fluorite. And I typically like to use a very simple setup for this. However, I don't think we're going to have to worry about scaling it up, just because the amount of polonium that this is going to produce and the waste isn't going to be anything crazy. So we should be able to handle it with a single solar neutron activator and isotropic centrifuge. Of course, the isotropic centrifuge can process a lot of fuel very quickly, so long as it's upgraded. Now, this is going to produce plutonium, and plutonium is the little pellets. Both of these things are used to make the SPS casing. Very important. Specifically, the pellets are used to make this. The polonium pellets are used to make all kinds of stuff, such as the mecha suit, which is probably one of the most powerful suits in the entire pack, making you virtually indestructible. Unkillable? That's probably a better word. Now, one other thing I do want to mention is up until this point, we have been using the quantum entangle porters. And well, while quantum entangle porters work really well with all of the other chemicals and gases and fluids and items in this pack, they don't work with anything that is radioactive. So if it is radioactive, meaning it has the particle effects that's on it, or it does say that it is radioactive, as in it says it has a radioactivity, it will not work inside of the quantum entangle porter. Unfortunately, I know, I really wish it did. And of course, there's one other thing that we have to worry about, and that is what happens after we produce these pellets. Well, let's talk about that. These pellets, after they have been, after they have ran their course, these produce spent nuclear waste. This has no use at all, except for it has a radioactivity. And what you need to do with this is you need to get rid of it in some way. And well, there is a way actually to get rid of it, and we can take use of all of this space that we have up top here in order to do so. All we have to do is take some barrels, specifically these radioactive waste barrels, and well, we need to automate them. And let's see, this requires steel, right? We need to automate them and make a lot of them. I typically like to make several of them. I usually do like 64 is usually enough to handle any of the productions I've made in the past. But yes, we want these, and we want a lot of them because I feel like this is one of the best ways to get rid of that waste. So I'm going to do 64 for right now and see how many that is. But yeah, we'll eventually just be piping all of that spent nuclear waste into these. Now, setting up both of these machines is going to be producing these two things. We want to make sure we have our waste line running up to both of them, and then these are going to actually send into the next step. So we need to get the fluid, which we have. So now we have the polonium, and then that is going to need to go into 2 PRCs. So pressurized reaction chambers. I'm going to go and get 2 of those crafted up. And while I'm waiting on those to get crafted up, what I can do is reduce the pipes that we need so we don't have pipes in between, and we will just split them right here. And then we need to take a crusher, and the crusher is actually going to need to crush fluorite. So I have an entangle porter that has applied energetics sending fluorite to it, and it's set to the fluorite channel, and then I'm just outputting into this machine. So as you can see, we have fluorite dust, but what I want is the outputs to be split to the left and right. So that way, when we put the PRCs down, let's see, there we go. When we put the PRCs down, these will automatically receive the fluorite that is required. Now, we're also going to need to take these machines and send them water. So yet again, another entangle porter. I love these, by the way, as if you couldn't see. After my recent discovery of these a few series ago, I have really fallen in love with them. But yes, I can just send to the top of these on the water channel because these are both going to need water. They're already going to be accepting the material from the back. So let's just say fluids from the top gases, we're going to receive input from the back. And then this is going to produce a negative. So it's going to produce that waste. And we want to output the waste, I think, to the sides. And then we're just going to send that out into those containers. So yes, we'll make sure the output is set to the side, and the same thing, but opposite is going to be over here. I'm just going to go ahead and for gases, clear everything. For water, clear everything. Input from the top, gases. We will output from this side and input from the back, right? Because we're going to be inputting from here, which should automatically be set up. We want to make sure the gases here are receiving the gases from the back and are outputting from the front. All of this configuration, it does take a little bit to set up, but it's definitely worth it. So input from the back, and then we want to make sure we output from the front into this machine. Okay. And then for the items on these machines, I'm actually going to send it to an ender chest. So we'll clear that, and we'll make sure the items on this, that it is receiving from the right and is sending output to the front, receiving from the left, auto output to the front. I know, lots of configuration, but it is going to work. And then we have the water that we need to set here, water there, and water here. And then, of course, configuration on the fluids. Yet again, we're going to auto output to here. And as you can see, the water is right where it needs to be. So set to water, and then fluids, same thing, auto output, right? Nice. Water. Okay, so now for the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and set up all of our waste barrels that I just crafted up. We crafted up 64 of them. And I'm going to set up all of these waste barrels. Also, making sure my ender chests go here, because that's where it's going to be outputting these final products. And then we just have to take all of these waste barrels and get them all set up, and take some of those pressurized tubes and make sure that this particularly coming from this chamber, is feeding into all of these. So with everything set up and powered, I now have my modular router powering all of the machines. This should be ready to rock and roll. All I have to do now is take another quantum entangle porter and, well, do the deed. And that is put this on here. Make sure we select fizzle fuel as our main output. Fizzle fuel. And then just set up the gases to automatically send to this and hope that it doesn't blow up. Yeah. And then we start to min-max everything and make sure that everything is set properly. By the way, first things first, let's make sure that this is set to a burn rate that is fine. I think for right now, we'll just set it to 1. Perfect. It was set even lower, but we can definitely handle 1 millibucket, that I know. So let's go ahead and set this up. So last thing we got to do is go to gases, clear this, auto eject, and auto output to the back. And thus we now have a tank set up and we have a fission reactor that is now running. So this fission reactor, as you can see, is holding water appropriately, mainly because of the logic cable that we have set up here that is exporting the fluids at a very high transfer rate, like an insanely high transfer rate. And then also our steam is being evacuated. And so we just have a self-sustaining fission reactor, because normally fission reactors aren't exactly used for power generation as much as they are used to get your suit set up for Mekanism and also gain antimatter. So as you can see, it's all ready to go. And the only thing we can start to do now is start to min-max our efficiency on our burn rate. So what we need to do is make sure that we have enough fizzle fuel burning, making sure that we give it the amount that we're generating, and then also making sure that we don't overdo it on our temperature. And outside of that, we should be creating ourselves waste. And we should be able to see that waste over here. So we see this. It is nighttime. The solar neutron activator, by the way, will not work during the day. And then over here, we have the isotropic centrifuge, which is not working, I think, because this is accepting all of it. But once this fills up, we could go ahead and disable this and then it will make sure to send all of the waste over to this machine. So typically that's what I like to do and kind of bounce it back and forth. Now, one thing I definitely need to do is go into my muffler settings and, well, find a Mekanism and find the Fission Reactor and mute that, because it is one of the worst sounds in my opinion. Oh, it really gets to your head after a while. Now, keep in mind, some of these machines, once fully upgraded, our little power is not going to be able to support it. So I think using points is going to be necessary, specifically for this chemical infuser, as this is going to use hundreds of thousands of RF, and also this is going to use quite a bit, like several 100,000 RF per tick in order to operate. So definitely want to make sure these are running at full speed, and that way we are maximizing our fizzle fuel. And that's just on this little setup alone. Now, I know one thing that's going to happen. We are definitely going to run out of coal. We are definitely going to run out of fluorite. And so I'm going to need to start to buff those as soon as I can, because I'm already seeing this number drop. But while we work on all of those things, we can now start to figure out what our actual rate is, because we can see this increasing. And so we need to go in here and we need to say, let's start with 25 just to see. And we already noticed that it's not slowing. So we know that 25 is probably not it. Let's go to 30. And of course, we also want to pay attention to our water. However, it shouldn't shut off. And we notice that it looks like we're producing more than 30 millibuckets. I really wish I could see my exact rate at which I'm generating, but you can't. So let's try 42. And I'm starting to notice it not climbing at 42. Am I seeing that correctly? No, it is still, no, it's draining now. So we're definitely not producing 42 millibuckets. So I will keep adjusting until I see that sort of level off. But you know what? Let's just do 32 for right now, and we'll see if that's a good number. Oh wow, it's almost exactly what it is. So it is burning. It's making exactly 32. It does seem like. Interesting. Okay, so 32 is actually pretty good burn rate, and so we should be seeing quite a bit of this material build up. We already have our first polonium pellet, and yes, that nuclear waste is full. That nuclear waste is full. So these are now running at their max, it does appear, without any upgrades. Of course, the isotropic centrifuge could receive some energy upgrades, but unfortunately, the solar neutron activator, it doesn't have any upgrades. So make sure it's set to ignored, and this actually burns really fast. So I'm not super worried about that. It's the isotropic that's going to need some energy upgrades and speed upgrades. Not maxed out on the speed, as that can it can really take a toll on the power grid here. So I'm thinking like maybe 1 or 2 speed upgrades. It really doesn't need all that many to be able to keep up. Looks like even 1 speed upgrade is probably more than enough. And so with this, we are now generating polonium pellets and plutonium pellets. Perfect. These are the things that we need in order to make the Powerpuff Girls. No, I'm just kidding. These are the things needed that just needs to go in here. And as soon as they're in there, these ender chests are going to work. And these are the things that we are going to use to make pretty much everything else moving forward as far as antimatter goes. So one of the first steps in making sure we have enough resources being generated, well, we should probably take our cards out of here and, well, upgrade them. All of these are going to need to be definitely upgraded. And maybe we can even upgrade them all to netherite. I feel like we should have enough, and it only takes 1 netherite card to power all of the same stuff that we had. So all of these cards combined, we should be able to combine them up, and we're definitely going to need to set up autocrafts for this. So if you're getting the autocrafts made up, we only need 11 of these, and yeah, we have plenty to make this. We'll just go ahead and start putting them in one by one. Unfortunately, these don't have more than what they do, but they are going to process a single stack, and we are going to need to make sure we upgrade our, yeah, we're definitely going to need to upgrade the cobble gens, as they're not going to be able to compete. So, and just like that, this should be enough. That is definitely going to start sieving everything, getting everything processed. My goodness, that is going to be producing a lot. And also something that I heard is that this will actually break down compressed versions of this. So that could be pretty cool. But this, I think this cobble gin is keeping up. I don't think there's another tier, right? No, like diamond is the max tier. Maybe we need a pipe to this? No, it does seem like it is working. It's just only, it's like definitely stopping. So I think we may eventually need more cobblestone feeding to this. And I am definitely going to need to upgrade these because my goodness, that is not able to keep up with at all. So now it's able to keep up. And this is where we might have to get upgrades going. As far as like our main ender chest, we may have to start adding more upgrade cards because there's gonna be a lot of items rushing in, and it was already a lot. This side I shouldn't have to worry about too much. But just to be on the safe side, I'll go ahead and make sure it's upgraded for future proofing. And let's go check, because this is a lot of items. It's a lot of items, and it's still able to keep up. I don't even know if there would be anything fast enough to do this outside of Laser.io, because that's a lot of items. Now, because I made that upgrade, I did have to do a few other things. So I did have to put void upgrades inside of here because this is producing a lot of pieces now. And our little conversion area, while it does work, it is not the best in the world. And the way I can combat that for right now, instead of setting up a massive smelting factory for each one, is going to be for right now, making sure this is set to distribution round robin on the pool, and making sure it is distributing the items evenly, and making sure we get a nice amount of everything going through, because otherwise this will be a mess and the whole thing would get clogged up. So as of right now, it does appear to be working, and I did have to turn off auto sort. So that way we can have multiple things smelting at once, which seems to be pretty decent. And since it is round robining, means we get different items rotating through all of this. By the way, remember that item buffer that I was worried about? It does seem like it's not big. It's only 64 items, which is perfect on the quantum and tinga porters. I'm glad I seen that, because over here, if we take a look at this, we're doing pretty well on our resources. I noticed that this seems to be actually going up on the floor right now, which means we could definitely start to scale this up, because we're barely using any of the fizzle fuel. Like, we are stopped at the production rate, which seems to be 32 millibuckets per tick. And so we could potentially start to scale it up, because we have a lot of temperature room here to play with. Potentially taking this all the way up to near 80 millibuckets per tick, definitely doubling. We could definitely double what we currently have. So now, after getting all of that set up, we kind of just have to wait for this to fill up. So of course, the plutonium pellets and the polonium. Now, we don't need as much plutonium pellets technically as we need polonium. We're going to need like over almost 300 polonium pellets in order to make the SPS, which is how we're going to get antimatter. And so that is going to, of course, take a little bit of time. But once we have enough, this whole setup is going to get converted over. Still debating on whether or not I actually want to make the mech suit or not, because the mech suit, while it does have its perks, I really enjoy this particular armor. I don't know. I could use the looks of this armor, but I even like the damage that this outputs. It's going to be really hard to give this up. But with all of this being said, the only thing it seems like is causing this to not produce more and produce at a higher output is, well, our production rate over here on our sulfur. The sulfur is what takes the longest amount of time, even with max upgrades. Oh, it's not even at max. Maybe once we give it the max speed upgrades, maybe it'll actually start functioning properly and working faster. There it goes. So now it's starting to produce quite a bit faster, but still, this is going to end up being the bottleneck. Sulfur is always the bottleneck, and so we would just need more chemical oxidizers, and basically copying this exact setup, placing the block above it, and then using our configuration card to copy the settings to the next one, and it would just work. And so that's what I'm probably going to end up doing, but that's going to have to wait for another episode, because today we are effectively out of time. And with that time, I'm going to let most of this stuff build up before next episode. And when we jump in, we're going to be able to get our SPS set up and start producing antimatter while we start working on other things. Like, I would kind of like to get started in mystical agriculture. I don't know about you. Let me know down in the comments below, what mod do you want to see me get into next? Anyways, guys, I thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, as these episodes do take a tremendous amount of time to record, especially setting up Mekanism stuff. It is very tedious. However, I've gotten a lot better at it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something new. I definitely learned something new today, and I really like this new way of setting up the fizzle fuel. So if you enjoyed that, like I said, click that like button or subscribe button. And let's thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Saturday HS, an amazing person and an amazing supporter that has been supporting the channel for quite a long time. And I definitely want to say thanks to them for continuing their support and just being a great person. So thank you so much, Saturday. I thank you very, very much. And of course, guys, if you're interested in becoming a supporter yourself, be sure to check out the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect. It is a great way to support me as a content creator and yeah, allow me to put out videos like this and not have to worry about the craziness that is YouTube AdSense. It is a mess and sometimes it's very unreliable. So guys, thank you so very much for just watching, and I, of course, will see you in the next episode. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.